Thank you.
Well,
Hey. You have a Daniel, is it KUSNER?
KUSNER.
KUSNER? And Amar Nath? Okay. Oh. Let's see, and I believe the plaintiff is giving you a jury list. To my understanding, we're just waiting on one of them. Supposed to be on its way. And Mr. KUSNER, have you ever conducted a jury trial before?
Never.
I'll just tell you a brief little rundown. There's 12. So what will happen is the first 12 on this first bench and this corner that I'm pointing to will be number 1. It'll be 1 through 6, and then 7 through 12. And then all jury trials begin with what's termed a voir dire, and an opportunity for both sides to address the panel as a whole. Not necessarily to go into specific details of this particular case, but you might have some questions you might want to ask them as to their background, experiences, things of that nature, just so you can have a better understanding of who they are. And since you are the plaintiff in this case, you get to go first. And then if you don't have any questions to ask them, if you just say, I don't have any questions, then they would have the same opportunity to address the panel or ask them questions. Once both sides have concluded, we'll excuse them to go outside just for a few minutes. Each side can strike up to 3 persons off this list. You can do 3, 2, 1, or none at all. At your pleasure. Then the first remaining 6 that have not been struck will actually comprise the jury panel that will get to hear this case. Then we can begin with the trial itself, and usually also both sides have an opportunity to make an opening statement. Again, not necessarily to go into details, but perhaps just to summarize what you intend to show during the trial. And they would also have the same opportunity if they wish to do so at that time, or if they wish to reserve till their portion of the trial. Then we'll begin testimony. Come up here, testify, tell the jury what happened. If you have any documents you wish to show them, that's fine. If not, when you finish, they would have an opportunity also to cross-examine you. Once you finish your testimony, you can step down, and they would have the same opportunity to present the evidence, give testimony. And if they do have witnesses or witness, you would also have an opportunity to cross-examine them as well. And once both sides have presented their case, we can close it out with short closing statements as well. They would instruct the jury to go deliberate and come back with a verdict. Any questions regarding the process itself? Okay. We would have 12. You know, there was one that was apparently coming by bus, and apparently the bus hadn't made it yet. Okay. At your pleasure, I guess. Also, we can wait another 5 or 10 minutes, or we can start and go with 11 and see what. But if we're left with less than 6, we might have to reset it. So we'll wait a few more minutes just in case.
I prefer to wait, Your Honor, if that's okay.
That's fine.
I'm fine to go now or
10 minutes just,
okay.
Just to see.
I'm gonna go rinse my hands. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Thanks.
chairs around on that side of the table for you, please. Or we can be facing that. Oh, on that side. Oh, on that side. Hey. Go ahead and bring them in, please. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you were all sent down here to be part of a jury panel in a small claim case, and just as a piece, they're referred to as small claim cases. As my understanding, this arose out of a motor vehicle accident, and our jurisdictional limit is $10,000, so whatever is being sued for has to be under that limit. And I've gone over the procedures as far as the jury trial is concerned, with parties. But before we actually start, were you all sworn in downtown before they sent you out here?
Yes.
And this part of the jury trial is what's termed a voir dire, and that's an opportunity for both sides to address the panel. Not necessarily to go into details of the specific case, but they might have some questions they might want to ask you about yourselves, actually, because really all they know is the information you supplied to the Central Jury Services, and they've supplied that to us, and they have it in front of you. They might have some more specific questions regarding your life experiences, things of that nature, to get a better understanding. Because of the 12 of you, only 6 will comprise the jury panel. Each side can strike up to 3 persons off this list, and the first remaining 6 that have not been struck will actually get to hear the case. So it's not like they get to pick and choose who's on the jury panel. It's a little bit more like a process of elimination. The first 6 that have not been struck get to hear the case. I anticipate this will be a short trial. It should be done by this afternoon. But in the event that perhaps someone might have a doctor's appointment, might have to pick up kids at school, does anybody have any issues with time constraints at this point? No? Like I said, we do wish to give both sides ample opportunity to present their case, but I do anticipate that it will probably be heard and decided by this afternoon. So it's not like you have to come back tomorrow or the rest of the week. And that being the case, the plaintiff in all cases has the burden of proof, so they get to go first and they get to go last. Just by way of introduction, Mr. Daniel KUSNER.
Yes.
You please stand. He's the plaintiff in this case. He's brought this lawsuit. Does anybody know Mr. KUSNER personally? Thank you, you may have a seat. And the defendant in this case, the person he is suing, is Mr. Amar Nath. Does anybody know Mr. Nath? And he is being represented by, are you Mr. Colin Hatcher?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Colin Hatcher is an attorney, and he's representing Mr. Nath. Does anybody know Mr. Colin Hatcher, perhaps being represented by him? Thank you. You may have a seat. Okay. And in justice of the peace courts, it's procedures are a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more informal. For the most part, rules of evidence don't apply, so a lot of times where you might hear objections to what's considered hearsay in higher courts, well, that's admissible in our court. Something that somebody said that's not actually here to testify. But in that case, the jury can weigh whatever credibility they wish to upon whatever testimony that might be as well. So we can go ahead and proceed. Mr. KUSNER, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
I do. It's the last time I saw you, I was introduced to this Texas pattern jury charge.
There's no jury charges in JP courts.
Okay, so just for clarity, I don't. The jury does not need to be instructed as to whether or not the defendant is covered by insurance.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
In fact, that's one of the things that pretty clearly spelled out in the case law. That's not to be considered at all. So anyway, do you have any questions you would like to ask?
Yeah. First off, thank you so much. I really appreciate all your time for your potential jurors. I really hope that this does not drag out. I do have some questions. Can any of you tell me if you're financially interested in any company writing indemnity or public liability insurance? May I ask who Lumitra Von Zell Nichols is? Hi, Lumitra. I realize that you work for State Farm. That question doesn't apply to you whatsoever. Thank you so much. Are any of you or is anyone in your immediate family engaged in any way in the business of indemnity insurance or public liability insurance? And can I just, let me see if I got this. Are you Armando? Okay, wait, are you Alexis? Yes, Alexis, I read the jury. This is my first time. Can you tell me about your answer to that question?
Well, my family was like a insurance business or something, but I'm not really much into that.
Your family's in the insurance business, is that what you said? Thank you, my English's not the best. I appreciate it. Thanks. Is there anyone in your immediate family connected with the adjustment or claim department of any public liability or indemnity insurance company? All right. And do any of you know this man? Okay. I have one other question. Charles David Hill. Do you work for you work for Henderson County something?
Yes, it was a county before we went to.
You work in the civic arts for Henderson County? How cool. And can I ask Linda Walters?
Yes.
Linda? Linda, you work for DPS? All right. I worked for DPS as well. Can I ask you get to work at the Garland Regional Station?
No, I trained out there, but I'm at the new Mexican over here on Twin and Wheeler.
Oh, cool. I have not been there. I hope it's a cool facility.
It's nice.
Awesome. And Catherine Ann Spinoza. Is that you? You're the only jurist who's ever been a party to a trial before. You served in a criminal jury once?
That's correct.
And none of y'all have ever been impaneled in the voir dire process? Well, what a civic, wonderful way to bond with all my neighbors. Is anybody here familiar with the 75216 zip code? That's my District 4 up in here. All right. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, Mr. Hatcher?
Thank you, Ron. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. I realize that we're compelled to do a service, but at the same time, some people spend a lot of time trying to get out of this. We appreciate you being here, because if you weren't here, as Honor already told us, if we didn't have enough people here, we would have no trial. So thank you for coming. And giving us your opportunity so we can resolve this dispute. I have a few questions actually arising from the notes. Let me just jump around on those. Mr. Vega, looks like you work in HR. The employer section was blank. Who's your employer in HR?
UT Southwestern Roads.
Thanks. And then Mr. Sierra, are you employed, Mr. Sierra? What kind of job do you do?
I work for food companies, and we work for the expos.
Okay. Who's your employer?
Freeman Company.
Freeman. Got it. Okay. And then I got the same question for Mr. Means. Mr. Means, are you working?
Not right now. My last job was just being raised at the same grocery store. I was there for something else.
Thanks. And then Mr. Means, highest level of education. 12. All right, Mr. Gomez, and over there. Mr. Gomez, you're employed right now? Have you worked before?
Yes.
What's your prior job?
Last one was
Like janitorial type?
yes.
Okay, thanks. And then Mr. Chavez, you also listed down here as unemployed, is that correct? And what's the last work you were doing?
As an RA at the University of Texas, basically.
me that Mr. Ramirez,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ramirez, you've done jury service before, right?
Right.
Civil case?
Civil case, right?
What kind of case was it? I don't know. Car accident?
Just, it was really quick, and then they started it, and then they stopped it, and they settled it out. And then they released us.
No problem. Okay. And then also, Mr. Mazzone, you also did jury service in civil, right? What kind of case was that?
Civil was a car accident.
I've got one more, Mr. Sierra. You done jury service too? Yes. What kind of case were you on?
It was also civil, property dispute.
Property? All right. We want to appreciate your time for my few questions. I'll be talking to you again, those of you who end up on the jury over there. In a short time, as is Honor probably, I think he already told you, not everybody here can actually serve on the jury. The jury is only 6 people. So for those who end up on the jury, welcome, and for those who don't, we really appreciate it anyway, because we couldn't do the procedure if we didn't have enough people, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you can step outside just for a few minutes while they conduct their strikes, and we'll call you back in the same order. Packet, hopefully you have this page where it's the number 1 through 12, and then the name that it corresponds to, and then a blank line. The blank line, if you'll just X out the juror that you don't want on the panel. Like I said, you can strike up to 3, but you can do 3, 2, 1, or none at all. And once you're done, just give it to the bailiff, and he'll bring it up to you, okay? Like that.
You can take it if you want it.
course of the trial, Mr. Kusner, I know you asked some questions regarding insurance, insurance adjuster. Don't bring anything about insurance or anything about settlement talks or anything like that, because they could request a mistrial. State of Texas case law prohibits introduction or mentioning of insurance or anything of that nature, since the only thing really they're here to decide is to determine whether or not Mr. Nath was at fault of the accident. If they find that he was, then they could award damages. So it's basically just tell the jury how the accident occurred, why you believe that he's at fault or not. Okay, go ahead and bring them in, please. As I call out your name, and you'll please swing around and have a seat in the jury box. Catherine Spinazzola, Jonathan Vega, Lomitra Nichols, Charles David Hill, Alexis Chavez, Armando Ramirez, At this time, I'm going to go ahead and release the rest of the panel. We do wish to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to participate. Thank you. There is an additional oath I do need to administer at this time to the jury panel. So you please raise your right hand. You and each of you do solemnly swear or affirm that in the case between the parties which shall be to you submitted, you will approve verdict render according to the law and the evidence. So help me God. Thank you. So we can go ahead and proceed. Mr. Kusner, do you have a short opening statement you would like to make?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for participating in this. On March 15th of 2017, Mr. Nath and I were both driving north on I-35, right around where the American...
It should be like you're going to go into...
No, just I was going to give him the...
Just do a brief summary of what this case is about.
Yeah. So on March 15th, 2017, in the morning, Mr. Nath and I were driving north on I-35. We got to the point where the North Dallas Tollway, right after the American Airlines Center, were you past that going north? The North Dallas Tollway confronts drivers. Mr. Nath was driving a large vehicle and had a very long trailer attached. He adjusted to not enter the North Dallas Tollway, moved over one lane, and clipped my vehicle. Dallas County Sheriff's Office officers arrived. They wrote a report. They concluded within the report that Mr. Nath was at fault and that his car clipped my vehicle. The only recourse that I had today was to come to court. Thank you.
Opening statement, or do you wish to reserve?
I'll make a brief one.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the trial this afternoon. We really appreciate you being here. You're going to hear evidence from 3 witnesses this afternoon. You're going to hear evidence from the plaintiff, who's going to, I think you just heard what he's going to tell you, because he just told you. You're going to hear evidence from Mr. Nath, who's going to tell you a very different version of how this accident happened. And of course, you, the jury, are going to have to decide which one's correct, because when you hear the 2 versions, I'm sure you'll say to yourself, well, one of these can't be true. It can't happen both ways. It's one version or the other, and you, the jury, have to decide which is the more credible version. And how will that help you if you simply have the testimony of 2 different people? Well, you're also going to hear evidence from Mr. Nath's wife, who's in the vehicle with him. So you're going to hear 3 sworn testimonies today. One from the plaintiff, one from the defendant, and one from the witness. And these, ladies and gentlemen, are called eyewitnesses. And they're all going to swear under oath to tell the truth. And then they're going to tell you their version. And one of them will not be correct. And you have to decide which. You will also hear reference to a police report. Police report is what we call secondhand information. Sometimes we call it hearsay. The evidence you receive in the form of a police report is written by someone who wasn't present at the scene and who formed an opinion after the scene, which may or may not be correct. I hope you, the jury, will listen carefully to the testimony of the eyewitnesses present in the court today who've given up their afternoon to come in here and tell you what happened. And I hope you will make a finding based on the evidence alone and based on the knowledge, which His Honor will no doubt inform you of, that the plaintiff has to prove the case. So when you hear the evidence today coming up, please bear in mind as you listen that Mr. Nath is not here to prove anything. The plaintiff is the person here who has to prove the case, and you'll be looking for evidence to support the plaintiff's side more likely than the defendant's side, or vice versa. You may decide the plaintiff's story is more likely to have happened than the defendant's, or you may listen to the defendant's version and his wife's version, and you may decide that that is the more likely way that the accident happened. Either way, I wish you well and look forward to presenting you the evidence. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay. Mr. KUSNER, come up here to the witness stand, please.
Do I have the ability to present here? May I ask the court if I have the ability to speak to the jury from this table?
No, you have to do it from the witness.
I must do it from there? Okay.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, shall we go?
Absolutely.
Go ahead and direct your statements to the jury panel, please.
Hi. It was not my idea to have this be a jury trial. That was a demand that Mr. Nath's lawyer imposed upon the court. Today, I promise you, is pretty open and shut. Only one interesting thing is going to happen today. You're going to be informed that Judge Judy, television's Judith Scheindland, actually got involved in this case. It is hard to believe, and I may be a shock for everybody else in this courtroom, but it's the truth, and I have evidence to show it, too.
Well, that's not going to be relevant. So just tell the jury about the accident and how that occurred.
All right. I have a really interesting job. Not only did I formerly work for the Dallas Police Department, I edited files for the jurisdiction's FBI database. I then went and worked for the Texas Department of Public Safety, where I trained law enforcement how to classify crime for the FBI. I'm used to training people who are even deposed sometimes as officers 3 years after an accident, that they would have to come in and from the report that they would submit to the FBI, they would have to 3 years later be answerable in a court of law as a public servant for something that may have happened 3 years ago. So I'm kind of good with details. I don't do that right now. Right now, I actually have an incredible job that is, I wish it was full-time, but it's not. I write for the Dallas Morning News. I write in a different section. I write in the Life. I'm usually the opening feature on a Saturday or Sunday. It's a wonderful job. But look at me, I do a lot of style writing, can't you tell? I do a lot of stuff that has to do with retail and fashion. But occasionally, I also do copyright law, specifically when it affects artists. And even one time, a podcast for a missing person. So my editor likes to assign me topics that intersect my law enforcement career with the newspaper. So on March 15th of 2017, I was on assignment for the Dallas Morning News for a copyright case involving a young black designer whose fashions were stolen by Forever 21. I was heading to the Oak Lawn Branch Library to pick up a book which cited copyright law regarding garments. My editor liked it, and he goes, "Oh, that's such a good authoritative use, because this book is someone that people always watch on television. It's not Judge Judy." So that's exactly where I was going. And I was on assignment. And I am used to traveling north on I-35. I've lived in 75216 for 18 years. This is an interesting, it's a little different living on this side of town. I live right between Lancaster Key Shopping Mall and Rudy's Barbecue Chicken. I've been a homeowner there for about 18 years. So I'm on assignment to go to the Oak Lawn exit heading north off of I-35. And you know what, you guys may be familiar with that stretch of road. I was able to take pictures of it because there are a lot of accidents that happen. If you are going north on 35, the road ascends just a little bit, and then you don't get to see very far off, north. You're kind of seeing the roadway, and some of these exit signs pop up on you. But if you're used to making that transition, you know which lane to be in to appropriately get off at whatever lane. So I knew which lane I was going to be in. The reason why I'm able to take these pictures is because accidents happen here frequently, okay? But this is the exit I was going to, Oak Lawn Avenue, and that's the lane I knew I did not want to be in whatsoever, especially if I'm on deadline. So I'm just traveling along. Mr. Nath doesn't even, from what I understand, I don't think he lives in Dallas. He's, I think, from a county, Leon County, which is a little further away. He may not be as familiar with the exits along 35 as I would. But he was also in a very large van and looks like a very hard-working individual. He has a very long trailer that he was carrying that day. And if he had to adjust, to get over and not be surprised by being in the North Dallas tollway lane, he would have to abruptly turn over. So that's what happened. And the back of his trailer clipped the front of my car. It was an accident. It was not on purpose. No one's dead. This could have been so much worse, but it's not. While I was actually sitting in Mr. Nath's vehicle, because we went to the roadway, and can we, do everything that it takes for a financially responsible motorist to do upon that situation. He actually let me sit in his car as we waited. He wanted to have a crash report, conducted, which is fine. So we sat in the car. Dallas County Sheriff's officers came up and they asked if we could move out of the roadway because that little area is a little busy. So we went around near the information mart and we parked and we talked. And I had sent my editor, hey, at March 15th at 11:09 a.m., hey, I sent him this message from my iPhone. While traveling to the library to get the Tim Gunn book, a motorist carrying a large trailer suddenly switched lanes and hit me with his trailer. I have a feeling I will need an extension on the Charles Smith II story. He writes me back, oh my God, I'm so thankful you're okay. That's just terrible. So the officer showed up. He investigated. He took his report. He responsibly entered that report. And in the report narrative, which, can I introduce this to the jury so that they can see it?
What is it?
It's the narrative from the accident.
Okay. Have you seen it? Do you have any objections?
No, I haven't seen any plaintiff's exhibits.
You want to show him that?
Sure.
Look at first of all.
This is the narrative from the vehicle. This is the first page, or from the report. This is the first page of the crash report. Do you have any problem with those? No objection, Ron.
Give me a minute. You like to hand it to this first juror, first of all,
Thank you.
and just kind of glance through it, depending on the length. If you want to go through it, that's fine. Just kind of glance through it, pass it on. The last juror, you just put right there in that corner at the end of the trial. The bailiff will pick up all the exhibits that have been introduced.
And
Go back to inside the jury room as well.
There's also an instructive diagram. Is that a bit? This is part of the same report.
No objection, Ron.
This is the instructive diagram that accompanied the report too. So the report clearly illustrates units 1 and 2 were towed. Those are 2 units in this Mr. Nath's vehicle. He was in front of me. He was getting from one lane to the next. The report clearly states the driver, quote, the driver of units 1 and 2 towed merged into Unit 3's lane after getting onto I-35 from Woodall-Rogers Freeway and, quote, made contact to unit number 3 with the back left of the trailer, end quote. It seems pretty simple. I really thought that this case could have been resolved based on that evidence, which is admissible in this court of law. So I had to file in order to do that. And that is when the defendant's lawyer demanded jury trial. This case has been reset 4 times now. I would just like to get it settled and move forward. The part that gets weird about this, Judge Judy sent me a letter.
It's not relevant at this point. Just here to decide how the accident occurred and caused it.
Okay.
Not a TV show. Anything else regarding the accident?
Yeah, I first sued for $3,000. It impacted a work day. I lost the assignment since I am on freelance. The assignment ended up going to Vogue magazine, okay? Published on March 22nd, 2017. I finished my report, but because the subject of my story had to go out of town, the photography got delayed. If I don't publish a story, I don't get paid. So I lost out on that assignment. It was a crucial assignment for me as well for this poor, African American Dallasite whose designs were just ripped off, by a competitor here in that was even news for Vogue magazine. So again, when I was contacted by Judge Judy, that is when I amended my petition for this. I found that this case was getting dragged on in a really weird way. I amended my case to be charged for $10,000. If the defendant's lawyer is going to drag 12 citizens in here to the gnarly death.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the statements attacking the lawyers in the case. The witness is not giving testimony, he's giving argument.
Sustained. Since it's every person's right in the United States to have a jury trial, nobody should be blamed one way or the other whether or not they choose to have the jury hear the case. So anyway.
That's true. Except for
just regarding the accident, please.
I did discover that this gentleman's firm, which he files.
Your Honor, I'm going to raise another objection, same objection. He's now attacking the firm. It's not testimony.
I didn't even.
Sustained. That's not going to his law firm or anything else. But really, all they're here to decide is how did the accident occur and whether or not Mr. Nath at this point should be held liable or not.
Okay. Well, one thing that he did file with this court is that he promises a very strong, vigorous dispute. He promises a very strong, vigorous
Your Honor, second
dispute.
objection. The witness is not testifying. He is arguing, and he's in fact attacking the attorney.
Okay. Again, just regarding the accident. Anything else as far as facts are concerned regarding the accidents you wish for them to know?
Yes, I have damages.
Okay. Go ahead
And
tell them.
well, can I ask, is this the exact point where damages would be addressed?
You
Or
can do so.
okay, so I have repair reports for the damages that were caused and were determined to be the cause of this vehicle by the officer who wrote the report. And because this case has been dragged through so much, I had to prepare, in fact, whether or not that report would be admissible. And I discovered that I may have had to have subpoenaed the officer. Check this out. The officer, frankly, not in the line of duty, because that's what I train officers how to report. The officer, unfortunately, died in the month of March who wrote this report. This nice officer.
Your Honor, I'm going to object again. This is irrelevant. The witness is not presenting evidence on
Just
testimony.
just show them the documents you wish to show them regarding estimates or damages?
Okay.
things of that nature?
Sure.
Good.
I have court
Did you
costs.
see them before he introduces them?
Your Honor, I have seen no exhibits at this time, so I'd like to see them before.
Can you show it to them first, please?
Do it, show it to who's them?
Yeah.
Okay. So here are the court costs. Do you want to go over?
You can step down.
Okay.
You can step down.
Court costs cost $100 to file. $61.
Just give it to him, please.
Okay. Here you go.
If he needs to review it first.
$61 because Mr. Nath doesn't.
Hold on.
When I object to all of this, it's not evidence of plaintiff's damages. It
Let me
has to
see.
do with
Can you give that to me, please?
Yeah.
Okay. This is something you're going to request, correct?
Yes.
It's part of the damages.
Yes.
Which is fine.
Okay.
Okay, it'll be admitted. Just give it to the first jury.
Okay, so on top of coming here just to sell this, I had to drop $100. All right, basically unemployed freelance journalist here. $61 because Mr. Nath is. I don't know Mr. Nath very well, but I don't even believe he lives in.
You can have a seat back there so we can step, please.
I don't even
To
believe.
testify.
I don't even believe he lives in Dallas County, and that's where the Judge Judy thing got weird too. $6 for a public information request in order to get that report. And then $12 to park at the Crawley courts in order to get that report. And then I forget what a $5.31 answer jury demand is. It's one of these receipts here, but I can't remember what that is.
We can just hand it to the jury.
Okay. Here are a lot of receipts.
And what else do you wish to show?
I'm so sorry. Like the procedure for this is do we have to? You're asking me what else do I want to show, and then show who?
Well, let me see.
Okay.
Your Honor, I believe the plaintiff is showing the jury documents I'm not seeing at this time.
Are those the receipts that you basically summarize on that?
They are,
page?
sir.
They're just the receipts. They're fine. Anyway, you have estimates or the
Yes.
damages?
Yes.
Is that something else?
Here's a car estimate.
Okay. You wish to see that as well?
Yeah, please, I haven't seen it.
Please, go and show it.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, be admitted. Anything else?
I get paid between.
Let me see.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. I get paid for the work that I do. Somewhere between $250 to $400 an article. I was on assignment. I lost the assignment due to the deadline associated with this. I want to get paid for it.
Is that it?
Yeah. No.
Your Honor,
Also.
I'd like to object to that request. I'm not aware of any such request in any of the pleadings today. It's not in the petition.
Okay.
We have no forward notice that this is a claim the plaintiff is making. Otherwise, Your Honor, we would have requested the court to grant us discovery into that matter.
Well, whether or not you would have requested or not, I'll leave it up to the jury to determine, first of all, whether or not Mr. Nath is responsible for the accident, and then as to what damages you might want to award him. You can award him if he wins, you can award him everything that he's seeking, or perhaps some, but not all. That's up to the jury to decide. Anyway, anything else?
I was paying attention to what Colin just said over here, the lawyer. He said that he did not make a request for discovery upon the court.
Well, our rules is objection, so.
Okay.
Counsel wishes to state.
It's just that I do specifically remember he did request that before he demanded a jury trial. In his court papers, he filed that. But since this case dragged me on through so much, I went ahead and amended my petition to go to $10,000. And I'm asking my neighbors. I sought medical anguish, and I have a note from my physician from when I started therapy. And I would like to submit that as well.
Your Honor, I'm going to object again. There's no personal injury claim in this case. It's never completed, Your Honor, the petition. Plaintiff is making up new damages claims in the court right
Is there
now.
personal injury?
Let me look at the first filing of this. Does that have to state here in the small claims petition whether
I'm
personal
asking you,
injury?
did you have personal
Yes, I did.
injuries?
I did.
Physical injuries?
I do have. I re-injured myself, but this is mental anguish, and I have a physician's note that I sought therapy during the course of this trial, and I would like to submit that.
Never completed, Your Honor. This is the first time I've heard that the plaintiff is making this claim. I'm not aware of any proceedings today. I therefore request the court bar it. It should not be allowed to be absent of any
Well, I'll sustain that objection as far as that's concerned.
So I would like to submit the letter from my behavioral health director to the jury.
Your objection.
I'm going to reject that, Your Honor, for the same reason. He's now making a personal
It's
injury
been
claim.
sustained, so that's not going to be a factor. They won't be able to take that into consideration.
Okay. So the mental anguish, though, I still would like. That's why I rose it to round it up to $10,000.
Okay.
Let me just see. I did want to just let you know that the officer that wrote the report is now dead, unfortunately. And right now, I think that's enough.
Okay, Ross?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Dunn?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I'll call Mr. Nath to the witness stand, please, Your Honor.
Please come up here to the witness stand, Mr. Nath. Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. May I have a seat? And when you respond to his questions, if you'll direct them directly to the panel, speak as loud as you can, please. Proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Nath, good afternoon. Mr. Nath, please speak up loud so the jury can hear you. Thank you. Mr. Nath, on March the 15th, 2017, where were you coming from? Where did your journey begin that day?
Marcus, Texas. We were in Texas.
And where were you going? Where was your destination?
India Bazaar in Irving, Texas.
In which city?
Irving.
Irving?
Irving.
Got it, in Irving. Thank you. And Mr. Nath, this accident happened on the 35 northbound, correct?
Mm-hmm. So,
Is that a yes?
yes,
Also known as Stebbins Freeway?
yes, sir.
All right. Had you driven that road before, sir?
So many times.
How many times?
I'm a professional truck driver. My CDL, I've been driving semi-truck for 22 years.
Can you give us an estimate how many times you may have driven that road? Hundreds?
Thousands of times because I work for Walmart distribution for 3 years.
All right. So I think you said thousands? Thousands of times? All right. Mr. Nath, I'm going to show you some pictures of your vehicle and have you confirm. I'm going to give, Mr. Nath, I'm going to show you exhibits 1 through 6. I'm going to give a copy to the plaintiff here as well. I'm going to give exhibits 1 through 6 to you.
Yes. No. Sorry. Questions about the case, or questions like you need to take a break?
What about the case?
Oh, no. Sorry.
All right, Mr. Nath, you have exhibits 1 through 6. Your Honor, as the witness identifies them and we're okay with them, may I pass them to the jury?
Well, see if he has any objections.
They're totally fine. The jury can see mine copies
Okay.
if that makes it easier for them.
It'll be a minute.
All right, if Your Honor, I'll pass them over to the jury.
That's fine.
Mr. Nath, 1, 2, and 3, can you identify, is this the vehicle you were driving?
Yes, sir.
And are those pictures of the trailer you were pulling?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you're going to pass them to me, I'll hand them to the jury so the jury can see that. And Mr. Nath, I'm going to give you number 8. Sorry, 7. I apologize. Defendant 7. And Mr. Nath, this is a Google picture of Stevens Freeway northbound. I believe roughly in the area where this happened. Can you look at this picture, please? Can you tell me, is that the correct area where the accident happened?
Yes.
Your Honor,
Yes.
may I object? This is not where I can see visual marks where this accident is, because I'm familiar with this part of Dallas pretty well. We're not in this part. The accident didn't occur here. It occurred.
You'll have an opportunity
Okay.
to rebut whatever
Thank you.
he says.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
All right, Mr. Nath, is that the correct general area?
Yes.
All right. Any objection? Your Honor, I'd like to submit that as evidence.
Okay, just be admitted.
All right. Mr. Nath, I'm going to pass it to the jury. Mr. Nath, do you remember how many lanes on Stevens Freeway there were in the area where the accident happened?
7 to 8 lanes.
Did you say 7?
7 to 8 lanes.
7 to 8? All right. And what road did you come from to get onto Stevens Freeway?
45.
All right.
I'm 45.
And when you came on from 45, what lane did you put your vehicle in?
The third lane from our right.
Third from the right?
Third lane from right.
Okay. Mr. Nath, did you get into the third lane from the right as soon as you got on at the 45 on-ramp?
Yes.
All
45
right.
put you right on the third lane.
Okay. Mr. Nath, did you stay in that third lane throughout?
Third lane, yes, sir.
Were you still in that third lane from the right when this accident happened?
Yes, sir.
Were you ever in the second lane from the right?
No.
All right. So you got on the third lane at 45. Did you ever change lanes once you were on the Stevens?
No.
All right. So you're driving along on in the third lane from the right on Stevens Freeway, and what was the traffic like around you?
This was our traffic in not bad, but the traffic is around 35, 40 miles an hour.
Would you describe the traffic as heavy?
It's heavy.
Okay.
But not as heavy as like, earlier. Like in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock.
All right.
It was heavy traffic.
Mr. Nath, don't forget, please speak up loud and talk to the jury so they can hear you. If you turn your head to them, they'll hear your voice better. Mr. Nath, did I hear you say traffic was going 30 to 40 miles an hour?
35 to 40 miles an hour.
All right. And is that how fast you were going?
Yeah, follow the traffic.
All right. Did you see the plaintiff's car before this accident happened?
No, I haven't seen his car.
All right.
I heard the noise and I see it in my mirror.
All right. So you're driving, you said you were driving along and you heard a noise, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You heard a noise? What kind of noise was it?
When like side right, when two cars get together, you heard the noise.
Did you feel anything in your
It
vehicle?
wasn't big noise, it's just, you can feel the vibration. And it's just like that.
Did you feel it in your vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Did it feel like somebody had bumped you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes?
I opened, I dropped.
At the
I
time,
opened my windows and tried to look at it.
all right, at the time you felt this bump, were you trying to change lanes?
No,
Were you in the third lane from the right?
I was in third lane from right.
Were you planning to change lanes?
No, because we have to go on 183.
Okay. So you heard a bump, what happened next? Sorry, you felt a bump, what happened
I
next?
see Mr. Kushner's car and I pulled over right away. I turned my flash on, slow down, and pull on shoulder.
When you first saw, after the bump, when you first saw Mr. Kushner's car, was it in your lane or in the lane beside you?
On my left lane.
It was to your left?
Yeah, on driver's side left lane.
Okay. So the first time you saw Mr. Kushner's car, you were in the third lane from the right, correct?
It's in fourth lane.
So he would be in the fourth lane from the right, is that correct? Is that right?
At the time, I don't know, but after I heard the noise, I see the music.
Yes, Mr. Nath, I'm asking you after you felt the bump. Then I think you said you saw his car in the fourth lane from the
Yes, sir.
right. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. I think you said you put your blinkers on and then you pulled over, is that correct?
Yeah, that was the restaurant, pull over and shoulder.
All right. And what happened next when you pulled over?
Then I think he passed me, he come back and pull over behind me. He passed shoulder and he talked and we tried to exchange the information. And then he called the cops. The cops arrived in like 35, 40 minutes. And then the cop told us, it's too busy here right now. So he took us to next, I think it's next exit now.
All right. Mr. Nath, did Mr. Kusner apologize for bumping you?
No.
Did he accuse you of bumping him?
I asked him, is this all right or not?
Did he accuse you of bumping him?
No.
Did you inspect?
He saw me sometime. He saw me on phone. It says you're on the phone. It's a blind side and this and something like that. I couldn't pay attention at the time, and he talked so much, so I couldn't get the word edgeways or something.
Did you get out of the vehicles and inspect the damage?
Yes, sir.
And what did you see on your vehicle?
My trailer tail light on the left, on the driver's side, is broken, but it was still working.
Okay, is that the light at the very rear of the trailer on the left, on driver's side?
It's not end of the trailer, it's little about 2-3 feet before the trailer, right on
All right.
between tires.
And did you see damage on Mr. Kusner's car?
He's got a right side fender, so he was parking alongside the barricade, at the shoulder.
So you couldn't see it?
change, but I saw that once we pulled on next exit and the officer told us to go next exit, then I saw it.
Okay. Mr. Nath, did you give a statement to the police officer who came to the scene?
Yes, I do.
You told him what happened?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Did you tell him that you were not changing lanes?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell him that what you told the court just now, that you felt a bump?
I told everything I said right now, I told him the same thing. But the officer was confused. You know, just like 2, 3 freeway get together and separated. He doesn't exactly figure out where this thing happened.
All right, Mr. Nath, thank you. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Kusner, do you have any questions you would like to ask him at this time?
Yes, I do. Hey, Mr. Nath, good to see you again. Glad you're all right. Your car, the vehicle that you drive, that van, do you know the make and model?
TMC 2005.
It's a big ride, right?
So
Okay, like, does it have 3 rows in the back? Or 2?
it's got middle row and last row.
So it's 3 rows total in the vehicle? And then you have a trailer. Is that for your life? Is that for your...
16-foot trailer, 14-foot truck.
And what kind of work did you do work on that trailer? Is that a type of job that you use?
I was supposed to buy something, I cannot put in my vans like that.
So it's a big car, and then 16 feet back, all the way to the end right here,
Yes.
where our cars collided, where the officer said, your car is the one that hit mine, this tow trailer. Could have been so much worse. I could imagine driving a big, huge rig and trying to get over a lane, and you hit someone and the person isn't dead. So we're totally lucky. This could have been so much worse.
You can't make statements if you're cross-examining, so just ask the question, please.
Previously, you said you've traveled up and down 35 a billion times, or not a billion. I don't
I
know.
traveled 48 states, 3 million miles below.
All right, very cool. I'm proud of Dallas's highway systems. They're elegant. So, you know, there's the American Airlines Center on your right after you finish coming past Woodall Rogers, and then of course there's that tollway exit. And where I was going was the exit after that, which is Oklahoma Avenue. Since you're so familiar with that roadway, I'll give you a hint. The North Dallas tollway exit is 429. The Oak Lawn exit is 430. What is the exit that precedes the North Dallas tollway? Do you know what that is?
Victory.
Say it again?
Victory.
No, it's not. It's Highline Drive. And those exits kind of like surprise you after you get off Woodall Rogers. I don't travel the tollway because I can't really afford it. So I am always observant that I'm not really going to get on that because once you're on it.
Your Honor, I object to the questioning. It's not a question. The plaintiff is
So
simply...
you are making long statements, so this is the opportunity for you to cross-examine, which means you ask him direct questions, and then he can answer. Once he's gotten off,
Cool.
and then when they're done with their portion, you can come back and rebut the rebuttal testimony to the jury.
Cool.
But this is just the opportunity for you to ask him questions.
You were wearing your seatbelt, right? You didn't get a ticket for that. Your driver's license was on you. It wasn't expired. Registration wasn't expired. Our license plates were cool. No, neither of us had warrants. And our vehicles weren't reported stolen. So everything for us to be responsible drivers, that didn't come up in any citation. Did you get to read the officer's crash report?
Yes, I did.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up?
No follow-up, Your Honor.
Please sit down. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Manisha Nath.
Okay, Ms. Nath, if you please come on up. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So, God, have a seat, please.
Ms. Nath, thank you for coming in today. Good afternoon. I'll repeat what His Honor has already said. Please, if you can, look at the jury when you're talking, because then when you speak, your voice goes that way. And speak as loud as you can. Try and speak as loud as I am. Ms. Nath, were you in the vehicle with Mr. Nath on the day of this accident?
Yes.
And where were you sitting in that vehicle?
Next to the driver's side, front,
Front passenger?
passenger side, the front
Okay.
one.
All right. Do you remember Mr. Nath being on the Stemmons Freeway?
Uh-huh, yes,
That's a yes. And do you recall the road that you were on before you came onto the Stemmons Freeway?
yes,
What was that road? Do you remember the name?
it's 45, and after that we took 35.
All right. 35 east northbound, is that
Yes.
correct? Also known as Stemmons Freeway, correct?
Yes,
All right. And Ms. Nath, I want to show you one of the pictures that we already gave the jury. It's defendant 7, which is the picture of the road. I'm going to hand you this, just take a look at it. And Ms. Nath, you recognize that as the general area where the accident happened?
yes,
All right. And how many lanes were there in the area where this happened?
I don't remember, it's maybe 6 or 7, but we were almost in the third lane,
All right. What lane were you in?
third lane,
Third lane from the left or third lane from the right?
right,
Third lane from the right?
from the right, right.
Did you get into the third lane from the right as soon as you came on from 45?
Yes, because we have to go 183, we have to take the exit again, so we were in third line.
All right. And were you in the third lane from the right when this accident happened?
Yes,
Before this accident happened, was Mr. Nath making a lane change?
no,
Did you feel the bump that Mr. Nath talked about earlier?
no, I didn't.
Okay, so what was your first knowledge that some kind of accident had happened?
I didn't hear any noise, but my husband told me that something is bumped, and that's how I come to know that it is bumped with some car.
All right. And when your husband told you that, was your vehicle still in the third lane from the right?
Yes,
Not changing lanes?
no.
No further questions, Your Honor?
Do you have any questions of this witness, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, again, this exhibit that's been previously admitted is, I guess this is number 1. This is the vehicle you were in?
Yes.
And so do you have 4 rows of seats in that vehicle? Is it driver and then passenger, passenger, and then a third passenger in the back?
We have
Seven
ran
passengers.
with this 3 line, like,
So either 4 rows of seats or 3 rows of seats.
3
That's
rows
how
of
big. People in New York would be jealous of that size space to even live in. And then you have a huge trailer all the way in the back, right?
Yes.
And you're in the passenger.
yes.
And were you able to see my vehicle behind all of that?
No.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Glad to know you're doing all right. That's it.
Anything further?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
You may step down. Rest.
Defense rest, Your Honor.
Okay. At this time, do you wish to give some more rebuttal testimony?
Sure.
Come up here, please. You're still in the room.
Okay. I would have hated that this case would have subpoenaed an officer almost over a year and a half after.
Your Honor, it's not rebuttal testimony, so I'm objecting. It's argument.
Yeah, just if you wish to give them testimony to rebut whatever they testify to, that's fine.
Yeah, I think I know the streets of Dallas a little bit better. I knew exactly where I was going. Mr. Nath made an accident. The officers determined who was at fault. I'm sorry that all of you guys, that this case has been set 4 times to not just settle this matter. That's all I have to say.
Your Honor, that's another objection. It's not rebuttal testimony.
That's
It's
fine, he's
argument.
finished.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions to ask him?
No, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that appears to be all the testimony that will be given in this case, and shortly I will advise you to follow the bailiff into the jury room for the first order of business is that among yourself, select the guidance juror, the bailiff is going to follow the exhibits that were if at any point in time, whether it's right after you've selected presiding juror or after you've been deliberating a certain period of time, if you wish to take a break, feel free to do so. The bailiff will at all times be outside the door, just make them aware that you're taking a break. If you do take a break, do not pair off into 2 or 3 and discuss the case amongst just 2 or 3. You can only discuss the case when all 6 of you are inside the jury room. Occasionally, the juror might come up with a question, so we're going to supply you with a pad and a pen as well. Sometimes there are questions that the jury panel asks that we just cannot answer. We're not what's called a court of record, and we don't have a court reporter taking everything down. So you're going to have to rely on your own memory and your fellow jurors' memory as to what was said from the witness stand. And of course, you can see with your own eyes the documents that have been introduced. Since you are basically the triers of fact in this case, you can choose to believe everything that a witness said, or perhaps nothing that a witness said, or perhaps some but not all. That's up to you. We're also going to supply you with a very basic verdict form. States Daniel KUSNER, plaintiff, versus Amar Nath, defendant, jury verdict. We, the jury, find for, and the options, of course, are plaintiff or defendant. If you find for Mr. KUSNER, then just circle plaintiff. An additional line underneath is in the amount of blank, whatever amount you feel he might be entitled to, or perhaps that he's shown to you that he's entitled to. If you find for Mr. Nath, then just circle defendant, and that's it. There's no counterclaim, so he's not suing for damages. If it is a unanimous 6-0 decision, then just the presiding juror needs to sign. If it is a 5-1 decision, either way, you have reached a verdict. It does not have to be unanimous, like in a criminal case. It can be 5-1. But if it's anything less than 5-1, 3-3, 4-2, you have not reached a verdict, and you should continue deliberating until hopefully you can come back to a verdict. And if you need, like I said, at any point in time you need to take a break, let the bailiff know. When you reach a verdict, also let him know that you reached a verdict, and he'll bring this back into open court, and I'll read it in open court.
I apologize, Your Honor, but we haven't.
That's right. Closing statement. Okay. You're also entitled to a closing statement, Mr. KUSNER. Would you like to make a closing statement, which is basically just an opportunity to advocate to the jury as to perhaps why they should come back with a verdict in your behalf?
Yes, some people go down to their local courthouse to settle simple matters of dispute and to try to get them over with and move on. That's what I did in my best attempt today. Thank you for participating in this. Good luck with your decision. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Hatcher.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. You don't have a demonstrative thing to show the jury for the court. It's the same picture, Your Honor, with the lanes numbered on it. Your Honor's permission. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the case. As you probably worked out by now, you only really have one decision to make. What lane is Mr. Nath in? If Mr. Nath is in the second lane from the right, making a lane change, as Mr. KUSNER argues, then that's one version. Or if Mr. Nath is staying in the third lane, you can see I put a number 3 on that lane where he says he was. Ladies and gentlemen, you're here.
Your Honor,
you have a great responsibility.
is this being admitted into evidence right now?
Which one is that?
This is one that was not previously entered. This is one now with numbers on it.
What are you showing them?
He just presented me with this. This is a new document.
Is this just for a closing statement?
Yeah, he just tried to enter this into closing statements.
So it's a closing statement?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is you're not admitting it as a...
Your Honor, it's a demonstrative. I've simply put numbers on it.
But not for purposes...
I haven't asked the court to admit it, Your Honor.
Okay, but it's not going to be admitted, but still, if you just wish for them for purposes of your closing statement, that's fine. But it won't be an exhibit.
Ladies and gentlemen, I asked you at the beginning of this case if you would kindly listen to the eyewitness testimony you heard today. You heard 3 statements. There's 3 versions of this accident. 2 of them put Mr. Nath in lane 3. 1 of them puts him somewhere else. The one that puts him somewhere else wants you to support that version, that's the plaintiff's version, and argues that you should go to the plaintiff because that's what the police report says, and obviously the police report could not possibly ever be wrong. Police officers could never be wrong, right? But plaintiff himself presented you with a document which is the narrative from the police report. And I'll read you something from it. It says units 1 and 2, that's Mr. Nath's narrative of this trailer. It says units 1 and 2 code in the right center lane.
He's actually not reading.
I object to interruption.
Excuse me.
Mr. Custer.
Generally, you cannot interrupt
Okay.
closing statements as long as he's reading exactly what's on it.
That's what I was wondering, if he was reading exactly from what's on there, because I trying to follow along and I couldn't figure out exactly from where he was articulating.
You have an opportunity,
Okay.
if he's finished, also to add on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll repeat it, members of the jury. Second line in the narrative. Units 1 and 2, towed in the right center lane. And I'll pass this document down to you. Units 1 and 2, towed in the right center lane. What's the right center lane? What's the right center lane, ladies and gentlemen, in the 7-lane highway? The police report, for some reason unknown to Mr. Nath and his wife, has decided in the drawings to put Mr. Nath in lane 2. But the narrative says he was in the right center lane. That's completely incorrect. Why am I going on about this? Because I want you to understand that police officers don't always get things right. In this case, the investigating officer, his narrative is incorrect. And I want you to bear that in mind when you consider the credibility of that report. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd also like you to bear in mind, police officer wasn't there. You have 3 eyewitness testimonies here. And I would urge you to listen to those carefully. 2 of them say he was in lane 3, that he never moved, he was not making a lane change. The only person present at the scene who says he was making a lane change is Mr. Custer. So you have 2 statements under oath that Mr. Nath was in lane 3 and never changed lanes, and that Mr. Custer bumped him. Neither Mr. Nath nor his wife can tell you how that happened because they didn't see him. He was behind them. Mr. Nath said he felt a bump. Ms. Nath didn't even feel the bump. So they can't tell you what happened. But they can tell you that they were in lane 3 and they never changed lanes at any time. And against that testimony, you have to weigh Mr. Custer's testimony, that they were changing lanes. I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the evidence is stronger in favor of Mr. Nath. And I want to urge you to remember this important fact. Mr. Kushner has the burden of proof. He has to prove to you by what's called a preponderance of the evidence that his version is true. Preponderance of the evidence means, one way of understanding it is more likely than not. Yeah, well, we've heard the evidence in this case, and you know what? More likely than not, Mr. Nath was changing lanes. But look at the eyewitness testimony, ladies and gentlemen. What's more likely than not? Is it more likely than not that one witness contention that the lane change was happening is true? Or is it more likely than not that 2 witnesses swearing under oath who say, no, never changed lanes, straight line, lane 3 from the 45 on-ramp all the way up the Stennis Freeway? Is it more likely that that's true? I believe, ladies and gentlemen, you'll find that the weight of the evidence is in favor of Mr. Nath and Ms. Nath's version of this accident. And if Mr. Nath was driving along in lane 3 and did not change lanes, and Mr. Kushner bumped him, then the accident is solely Mr. Kushner's fault. It's not Mr. Nath's fault. And if you find that to be the case, that the accident is Mr. Kushner's fault, not Mr. Nath's fault, then I urge you to dismiss the case in favor of Mr. Nath and award no damages of any kind to Mr. Kushner because he caused the accident. Ladies and gentlemen, the majority of the evidence you heard today supports that position. Finally, on the damages, I'll be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure what the damages claim is in this case. There's a claim for a car repair. I believe you have an estimate there, about $2,700. I'm sorry Mr. KUSNER had an accident, and I'm sorry his car sustained $2,700 in damages. However, the evidence does not suggest that Mr. Nath should be paying that. It suggests, unfortunately, that Mr. KUSNER is going to have to pay for his own repair. Everything else, His Honor has already instructed you. You can consider as you wish. But I hope you will listen carefully, consider carefully the evidence, look again at the pictures. Look at the picture of the road, look at the 7 lanes. Look at the inconsistency on the police report and the narrative. Consider the 3 eyewitness testimonies that you heard today. Weigh the evidence and make a fair decision. Thank you for listening.
Have you pulled that picture that you were showing the jury, please?
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. KUSNER, anything else in closing?
Yeah, just want to let you know this picture that keeps being held up. This is the DART area station for the American Airlines Center. This accident, we didn't even get to be able to be pulled over until the Infomart. This did not happen in this region. This happened very close down the road here. And this is a bad picture. I can show you a clearer picture about where the accident happened and
Your Honor,
the scene from where it was
I object to
taken.
the presentation of new evidence at this point, unless the plaintiff is showing the same.
I'm not submitting it as evidence. I'm just referring to it to.
I'll allow it.
Thank you.
That other picture.
Again, this is where the accident happened. I'm used to being able to shoot from there because a lot of accidents happen there. Most familiar motorists are a little familiar with it, but that's nowhere near down here where this photo is taken, where the DART station is at the beginning of the American Airlines Center. This is clearly on the other side of the parking lot. And we were pulled over. Here's the Infomart, which is just beyond that exit. So this is where the accident happened, not back here.
You'll please follow the bailiff, and we'll take you to the jury room. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to be stuck in this deal. You can walk around if you wish to stretch your legs. You may want to put your stuff aside because there might be some other matters we might be taking up in the interim. And just kind of stay. I didn't see a signature from a presiding juror from anybody. Oh, is that you? Oh, wait. Who was the presiding juror? Were you the presiding juror? Okay. But this is your verdict, right? Yes. I just want to make sure that it was taken out when you get it, we can sign it. You have a pen? There you go. Do wish to express our gratitude and thanks for taking time out of your busy day to participate in our judicial system. I know you listened intently to all the testimony and took your time in deliberating and coming back with a decision. During the course of a year, I hear hundreds of jury trials and hundreds of trials just that I hear, aside from about over 4,500 eviction cases. So we have a very busy docket. So whenever there's a jury trial, that kind of like, I feel kind of like there's one less decision I have to make. And I'm sure that both sides here would want to have jurors as attentive and deliberative as you were in any event. That being the case, we will go ahead and enter the judgment in open court, and we the jury find for plaintiff, but you awarded him nothing, correct? Zero. Okay? That being the decision of the jury, we'll go ahead and enter it accordingly, and you're free to go. Thank you. It's a weird decision. I never question a jury's verdict, but either way, that is their verdict. We will enter it accordingly and send out judgment in the mail. You should receive it in a few days. Okay, thank you.
Amar, did you get a letter from Judge Judy? Do you want a copy of the one that has your name on it from Judith Sheridan herself? This is the original. You can have it. Judge Judy knows who you are.
Yeah. Okay. She's gonna fax it, right? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Last week I had a trial in Judge Jasso's courtroom. I have not gotten the verdict, and it's been a week, and I was checking because I think I only have 10 days to appeal. It's a small claims case. Do you want me to give you the case number? Yeah. Are you ready? Okay. JS 1730655-P.
I'm telling you, I'm this close to quitting today.
It's only Tuesday. You just had a huge weekend.
No. There's some people that make it ugly around here.
Oh.
Okay, well, they did as a jury trial. It was set for the plaintiff from $0 to recover. So are you the plaintiff or the defendant?
Plaintiff?
You're the plaintiff?
Yeah.
So there's a bond of $500 that has to be posted for that. And you have 21 days from the date that you went to court, which was on the 22nd.
Okay.
I can give you the bond information and then what you need to bring if you want to do that. You still have, it's been 7 days, so you still have 21 days to appeal.
Will I be receiving a notice from the verdict from the court?
Yeah, you should have got it in the mail. I sent it out before Memorial Day weekend.
Okay, yeah, no, it hasn't come in yet.
You need 3 money orders for these amounts, and they have to be payable to those identities. And then also the next page is the appeal form that needs to be filled out completely, except the signature page for the judge. When you have all that filled out, then you bring it back to me before the 21 days.
Okay, so again, I stopped in because I was surprised I haven't received a verdict yet.
So you want a copy of your judgment?
Sure, do you have one?
I have to pull your file.
And there was something else from my file I'm also interested in a copy of. It was, there was a voir dire. There were 2 voir dires. The first voir dire, I was interested in the bio report forms from the jury.
Mm-hmm.
Can I obtain copies of those?
If it was submitted to the jury, no. As evidence, who submitted it to the court? Were you guys or the other parties?
Okay, so I'm sorry. What's your question?
What are you asking for?
There were bio report forms for the first voir dire, which would have been on March the 8th, for a trial at 11:30. The bio report forms from that jury is what I'm interested in copies of.
I can't give you a bio report for that jurors because there's all confidential.
So do you have those though?
No, I don't. Those are being shred after the jury has been submitted to, dismissed.
Okay, but they.
I only have, which is the jury requests, but not the actual bio from every juror.
The bio reports, though, they're not prepared in this courtroom. They come from
the Georgian Courts building, the jury room.
Okay. Is there a public information request that can facilitate document?